After months now of speculation, Kirstjen Nielsen resigned last night as Homeland Security Secretary. President Trump naming Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Kevin McAleenan as acting head as he works to toughen his policy at the southern border. Hector Garza is a Border Patrol agent and vice president of the National Border Patrol Council. Good morning to you, Hector. What can you tell us about the new acting director, Kevin McAleenan?
So do you know that this is going to be a tough job? The Department of Homeland Security Secretary has a lot of responsibility. He has to work with our members of Congress. We know that he's going to be our acting secretary for the meantime. And we don't know who the permanent secretary will be, but we do have full confidence in President Trump that he will choose someone that will have the skills and determination to secure the border. What can you tell us about your experience with him? So working with Commissioner McAleenan, I have met with him personally on one occasion. He has been leading the charge on the CBP side. We do know that he does advocate for Border Patrol agents, and he has been trying to let the American public know of the crisis that's happening on the border. The president reportedly wanted someone tougher in that role. Does he fit that bill? Well, it's a tough job, and I tell you what, with the laws that we have in place, it makes it very difficult to do a good job in that position. I think what's more important is that our members of Congress are going to have to work with the secretary, be it acting or permanent. They're going to have to work closely with our secretary to make sure that we can solve this mess, and that includes providing the resources that our agents need to be able to solve this security crisis. Now, we do know that the administration is working on different ideas to be able to solve the crisis, since Congress is not acting on that. So we do look forward to working with Commissioner McAleenan and with President Trump. Is it fair to say that you were supportive of Kirstjen Nielsen in this role? Well, she tried her best. She tried her best to do this job. It's tough, again, with the laws that we have in place. It's not easy. We know that we need to end the loopholes in the asylum laws. We know that these people are abusing the asylum laws, and we need to end catch and release. We also need to end the magnets that encourage illegal immigration. And without the support of Congress, it's going to be a very tough job. And that's why President Trump is looking at different ideas to solve it. I guess that leads me to the question, what could he do that she wasn't able to do if you're talking about the constraints of the law and Congress not willing to act? So again, we don't know if Commissioner McAleenan will be the permanent secretary or not. We do know that President Trump will select somebody, and we trust his judgment. But some of the ideas that we're pitching to President Trump and his administration is that our Border Patrol agents double their duties as asylum officers, for them to conduct some type of credible fear interviews, and that will expedite the process of the asylum claims. That will make us more efficient, and at the end of the day, that will send the message that these laws cannot be abused by the people that are coming across. We spoke to the former acting ICE director, Tom Homan, earlier on America's Newsroom. He said this.
The American people, the voters, need to call Congress to task and say, you need to fix this. I tell you, you can build that wall, and it's going to certainly help, but then they'll just come to the port of entry to make fraudulent claims to asylum. We got to fix the asylum laws, and that's up to Congress. Kevin can't do that, unfortunately, but Kevin will do everything he can with his power, and with this president, through executive action, do what we can operationally that Congress fails to do legislatively.
So that brings us to a solution is needed. You see what's happening there, Hector, firsthand. What is the answer? So there's a lot of things that need to be done. First of all, we need to deal with this crisis right now. Our Border Patrol agents need the resources to make sure that we can detain these people in humane conditions. We need to stop the overcrowding in the detention facilities. But like Tom Homan said, we need Congress to change the laws. We need Congress to change laws so that we stop encouraging illegal immigration. That's the number one thing. If not, this mess will only get worse. We also need to make sure that we have enough agents to process these people, but we also need to focus on border security. Our agents can't be focusing their time on babysitting, carrying, and transporting these people. We need to focus on border security, and that's why we're working with President Trump to make sure that we do our job as best as we can. I hear the frustration and the urgency in your voice, Hector. Final thoughts. Are you optimistic that we can eventually come to a means to come to a solution for this crisis and get something done and have Congress act?
Well, I can tell you what, Sandra, President Trump is definitely trying. President Trump has been trying to look for different solutions. We are confident that we will find some solutions with President Trump. But again, we need Congress to help. We need the help from our members of Congress because our agents are having a very difficult time. We're working in very difficult conditions in overcrowded facilities where our agents are exposed to infectious diseases. We can't allow that. We need to protect our agents, protect the people that come into our custody, and we need to make sure that we stop the rampant abuse of our immigration system.
We hear you. Hector Garza, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to thank the President again for the tremendous opportunity to serve this country. I've spent the last 24 hours since yesterday talking with government officials, with administration officials, members of Congress to ensure a smooth transition. I will continue to support all efforts to address the humanitarian and security crisis on the border.
The President works very well with Kevin McAleenan. He's done an incredible job in the administration. Kevin wants to implement what the President is pushing from agenda items.
Well, the change at the top of the Homeland Security Department, as well as the head of the U.S. Secret Service. A lot of questions about what that means for policy, especially when it comes to immigration and border policy. One question, does it mean that the policy about family separations is going to change along the border?
The separation of families, the President has said before, he does not like that. It's a horrible practice. But Congress has a way to fix that so that it will not be a magnet for people to come here and use children to do it.
So let's start there with our panel. Chris Stirewalt is politics editor here at Fox News, Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, and Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters. Mollie, what about the shakeup and what it really means?
Well, Secretary Nielsen had a very long tenure trying to run this department. I think she actually handled the management of the department fairly well. The real problem that we have is that we have laws that incentivize the trafficking of children. There's a limit to what you can accomplish at a department when the underlying problem is something that nobody wants to deal with. Congress has to accept that they, as much as they don't want to do this, they might finally need to deal with some of these loopholes that are incentivizing these problems that are causing problems for the department.
Jeff, there's a lot of focus about behind the scenes, how this all went down, and what is really behind it.
There is, because, I know Mollie said it was a long tenure, but it wasn't that long of a tenure, and she did leave at a time when apparently she wanted to stick around. So what I'm hearing and what my reporting has shown is that the President was ready for a change of leadership at the top of DHS. His most important priority is dealing with that border, and he didn't feel that enough was being done to deal with the border, and so he's ready for somebody new, somebody with a lot of experience dealing with the border. They may be looking at some other options in terms of regulation, I was told by an administration official today, and we've obviously seen some other house cleaning at the department itself.
Chris, politically, the Democrats could have a unified voice on this, but they don't. Take a listen to two congressmen up on Capitol Hill.
This is not the national security crisis that the President continues to describe. There is a humanitarian crisis, but it's created by President Donald Trump.
The border situation is a national security issue, it's an economic issue, and it's a moral issue. The sheer numbers that are coming over right now, you got to call a spade a spade. It is extremely difficult to deal with.
Chris?
They got a problem, and that is that Democrats aren't in a position where they can address immigration. The president's obviously worried that he's not delivered on his promises about securing the southern border. He feels that acutely, obviously, which explains a lot of this as he's heading into 2020. He wants to be able to say that he got the job done, but Democrats are in no position to take advantage of this opportunity because just look at their 2020 field. When you listen to these folks, no one has come out so far, to my knowledge, no 2020 Democrat has come out and talked about a need for greater border security. Nobody's come out with talking about a need for dealing with the flow of migrants. Nobody's talked about having to change the law. We hear a lot about amnesty, but we don't hear a lot about the other side of this equation. And if some Democrat isn't there to get serious about this, they'll leave the lane open for Trump.
All right, Mollie, let's turn to the policy change when it comes to the Iran Revolutionary Guard, designating that group as a terrorist organization, and the head of that group, according to the Secretary of State on this show just earlier, Qasem Soleimani, as a terrorist. It's a big change.
It is a change, and there's historically a very good reason why the United States doesn't designate parts of governments to be terrorist organizations. Generally speaking, when you're dealing with government, you want to work through the normal military and diplomatic means. So I think there might be some concern that we are moving in this direction. At the same time, I think this administration wants to make sure that the sanctions that are in place are working and they are being enforced as much as possible. This gives them some more tools for enforcing those sanctions, but it is a way to ramp up tension with a country that we might not want to have too much tension with.
You know, Jeff, the Iraqi prime minister was just in Tehran just days ago. The Iraqi army works closely with the Iranian Shia militia that are active inside Iraq. As I said with the secretary, this will get complicated.
It certainly will get complicated, and one way it will be complicated or be complicating is for countries like Iraq and other countries that are allies of the United States that do have some kind of relationship with Iran. One of the purposes of this is to keep companies and individuals from doing business with groups that deal with the Iranian military forces. And the White House today on a call was not really able to identify specific companies that were doing that, but one of their goals is to prevent that from happening. That may have an impact on European allies. Of course, the Europeans have wanted to continue keeping the agreement, the nuclear agreement with Iran that the United States has pulled out of after President Trump came into office. It leads to some tension there with allies as well.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you talk about these sanctions. They are really taking hold. The oil production, the oil sales, it's all down. And you add this, it could really put a boot on the neck of Iran.
And I think that's part of. I think that's part of why this is very helpful, not for American politics, but for Israeli politics. I think that there's a strong desire on the part of this administration to make Benjamin Netanyahu look very good ahead of his re-election, what is essentially his re-election bid tomorrow. He got a big help from Vladimir Putin last week when Putin came in and delivered some long-lost remains of some Israeli troops that had come out of Syria. Trump is handing him something else that says Netanyahu can get results around the world. He's friends with both of the two largest powers in the region, and he can get stuff done. So I think this is a big help for Netanyahu.
Quickly, Molly, I'm at the Space Symposium. Should the U.S. be spending money to go to the moon and stay there?
In general, I think it's good for humanity to care about exploration, and it is something that resources should be devoted to, and we need to be willing to take risky moves. And so I hope you hear some good ideas there right near my hometown of Castle Rock, Colorado.
It is gorgeous here in Colorado. Panel, thank you very much.